Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson, my co-host, Brett LaCoy. And today we are going to talk about house hacking for first-time home buyers. And Brett, so when we say first-time home buyers and house hacking, what is your first thing that comes to mind?
So for me, the first thing that comes to mind if you're going to be a first-time home buyer, house hacking, is using FHA 3.5% down to get into a 2 to 4 unit home.
Right.
That is the number one thing that comes to me as house hacking.
Right. FHA makes it super easy, specifically for multifamily. Duplex, triplex, fourplex. The max is 4.
Yep.
Can't get an apartment building.
No, that'd be cool, but
Right?
not yet.
But so at the duplex, how does it work from an income standpoint? Like why do you want to do it this way?
So the main reason why you want to do this is essentially if you can get into a home that has more than one unit, you can potentially get somebody else in the other unit/units, and they could be paying your entire mortgage or at least a good chunk of your mortgage.
Subsidizing it.
Yeah. So you're collecting rent from these folks, and it's subsidizing your mortgage. Now all of a sudden you don't have that big $2,500 mortgage payment
Right.
under your belt is coming from your tenants.
Correct. Yeah, so I mean, realistically, you can come in with a low down payment. FHA allows
Yep.
3.5% down, right? Of course, you have to have closing costs. Now, maybe you can get that negotiated in, whatnot. But then you have, let's say, 2 units. Say one unit's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the other one's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or even a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, right? And you get rent from that other side to help offset your mortgage payment.
Right. It's something that, I think it's become a lot more popular lately. Like, this isn't the first time, that some people may have heard of house hacking, but they don't necessarily know what it is. Even 2 years ago, though, when I was buying my first home, house hacking? What the heck is that?
Right.
Why would I do that? I thought I needed to have like a 20% down payment to go buy a multifamily home, but that's actually not the case at all.
No, it isn't. It's, you have multiple options. And a lot of times, when I first got in this business, it was, say somebody's coming in with a little bit lower income, fresh out of school, and these prices for some of these homes are just too much, right? So we started looking into, hey, let's get a duplex to offset that payment a little bit.
Right.
Maybe instead of approving for $250,000, we were approved for $335,000, $340,000.
Right.
Right now we get a duplex. Your total mortgage payment's $2,500, but you're renting out one side for $1,000. That means your payment's $1,500.
Right. And yeah, that can be huge for someone just trying to get into a home. I mean, it's really fantastic, actually.
Yeah, and then you do that for a couple of years. Say you rent and you subsidize that, but now life's changed. Maybe you get some promotions at work. Maybe a significant other that's come along, and now you want to buy your own house. And you can literally, you've saved up some cash during this period of time, hopefully, because you've been subsidized with this.
Right. You haven't really had a mortgage to pay. Your tenants have been paying it, so hopefully you've saved up some money.
Right.
You and your significant other can now go out and buy your own house. You don't have to share a wall with neighbors unless you want a townhouse, which is completely fine.
And now you're renting out both sides of that, and guess what? You're subsidizing both payments, right?
Yes.
Not all of it, obviously, but...
Right. It's not going to be all of it, but it's going to be a good chunk.
Right.
I mean, heck, even if you're netting an extra $500 a month, I mean, that's significant. I'd love to save $500 a month. I don't care what I'm doing.
Right. When we say FHA, a lot of people give that, it's FHA, whatnot. But when it comes to multifamily homes, it definitely is
different.
It's different
It's
than
a
just
different
your single
atmosphere.
family. And the market's changing. So as of today, I mean, we have like close to 9,000 homes on the market now. Sellers are reducing prices. Sellers are paying closing costs. 2-3 weeks on market is no problem right now.
No.
Right? So the dollar per square foot did go down a little bit in July. I think it went from $210,000 to $205,000 in the Twin City metro market. So $210 per square foot to $205. So we've seen some movement, and I think it's there's a lot that goes into that, whether it's the higher interest rates and people the uncertainty.
But I mean honestly, it's a correction.
All right.
I mean, it couldn't last like it was the
Well,
last 2
right.
years.
It went up too fast,
Too quick.
Yes, yes. But besides FHA, what other programs do you have to have reduced in down payment?
So the other option that you have is you can actually do Freddie Mac's Home Possible program, and that is where you can go and get into multifamily for 5% down,
Right.
as opposed to 15% that you would have to do with Fannie.
Right.
So very similar. You know, it is a different loan program. It is 5%, but you know, if you were in a situation where, hey, this is only going to pass conventionally, it's not going to pass FHA, you know, that would be it. That would be something that you could go with.
Yeah, I mean it's only a 1.5% more.
Right.
3.5 versus 5.
Yeah, it's still a whole heck of a lot better
And
than
if you-
15.
Yeah, and if you have a great credit score, your mortgage, I mean that's the way you're going to want to go anyway, because your mortgage insurance is going to be much less than what it would
Yeah.
be on an FHA loan. So the FHA is going to have your upfront mortgage insurance plus your monthly, right? So if you can go that 5%, now there's a caveat though. If you're making $100,000 a year, you can't do that
Yeah.
because you got to be under the AMI, which is in the Twin City Metro is going to be $94,000. They raised that 10 grand
Right.
this year.
Right. So there are a few more hoops to
Right.
jump through
Right.
with using Freddie Mac's Home Possible program. Not so much with FHA.
Correct.
But if you heard that, that was our mascot. That was Maverick. He's snoring right now.
Looks like he's snoring, and he's definitely got his legs out. He's running. Must be about to run in his sleep. But anyway, so that's Freddie Mac. That's a Freddie Mac program. You do have to take a class for it. And
Yeah.
speaking of classes too, so a lot of times if you are going to buy a multifamily or you're going to buy a rental property, you do have to take a rental
landlord,
education
yeah.
landlord class. Right?
Yes, because you are going to be a landlord. I mean, this is your primary house, but it is going to be like a second, maybe a third job, depending on your case. You know, but you are going to have to manage tenants. You know, get them in there. You know, you're going to have to fix things when they break.
Right.
You know, this is all stuff that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah. So, what if you get that buyer that is struggling because they just have too much debt to afford that single family home, and we go ahead and talk to them about doing a multifamily because we're just on that edge, and you know they're like, well, what if I don't want to really manage anybody. What do you do then?
Right. Well, so luckily there are folks out there who will do the managing for you.
Right.
Property management.
Right.
I mean, they're fairly easy to Google. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of them do a good job. Always good to get references, you know. But they'll manage the tenants for you.
Right. I mean, and there's a monthly cost that goes with it.
Yes.
But guess what? You're not the one collecting the rental payments anymore. You're not
Right.
the one pulling, looking at credit to see if they qualify or credit, other history. Now, if you have access to that kind of stuff, there's definitely programs out there. I mean, I looked up a few. I mean, you can literally go online and just Google it yourself, but Smart Move Credit Check.
Yeah.
Like you can sign up for that. And then that way you pull things through and you can verify that somebody's got,
Right.
the credit to, make the payments for you.
Absolutely. Well, and so I guess this is kind of an aside. When Steph and I decided to rent out our condo, we actually used apartments.com,
Yeah.
right? And they wrote the contract that was town specific. They did the background check, the credit check, all of that stuff. Collected the money from the renter, and then we just self-managed after that.
Right.
Because we wanted to do that.
Right.
But if you don't want to self-manage, there's a lot of resources out there, a lot more than we can cover in necessarily 20 minutes. But we're going to cover some of the stuff that's important to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, a management company, and we'll just start with it. I mean, a management company will be able to find what kind of rates.
Right.
They'll be able to set the right rate, the rental rate. I mean, maybe you put it on, social media or Craigslist or whatever, and you want to get $1,200 a month. Great, if you get it. What if it's only $1,000 that you're supposed to be getting, right? So
Sure.
maybe talking to when we do that. That's a good point. When we get a loan for a house, we always have to get a rental schedule when it comes to a multifamily
This is
home.
yes. That's very important.
Right. So you'll know with that rental, that appraisal that you get, what each unit should rent for.
Right, right, and you know if that's what the rental schedule will say. That's the numbers we're going to have to go at,
right.
go with. Doesn't necessarily mean that is what your rent is going to be.
No,
it might be less. It might be more.
Yeah, I mean, they're going off the statistics of what others, but let's say you have, let's say you move in and 2 months later you've kind of updated that second unit for them.
Right.
Maybe you did some work to it, put some sweat equity
Sure.
in it. And now you can get a couple $100 more a month because it's nicer.
Right.
Let's say one unit is 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and one unit's 2-bedroom and 2-bath, and you're single by yourself. Which one do you have to live in?
I believe you have to live in the nicer one, correct?
No, not
No?
necessarily. You can
Okay.
prove, you don't really have to prove, but you get a letter of explanation. I'm single.
I
Only one
only
person in the
need-
household. I don't need 3 bedrooms.
Right.
I can live in this side. I mean, you have to have a valid reason for it,
Sure.
but you can, let's say that unit rents for $1,600, but the 3-bedroom rents for $2,100 or $2,000, right?
Sure.
So
You're gonna want
you
to
rent out that 3-bedroom, you can do that now. Look at that, that could subsidize the entire payment, right?
Right.
Potentially,
Potentially.
depending on what rates are and price of the whole works. But
Yeah, and I mean we're giving just a very general overview. There are a lot of moving parts when you do something like this. Doesn't mean that it can't be done, but there are going to be a lot of moving parts, and we're not going to be able to identify every single
no,
one.
but we want to give the basics out there.
Yeah.
And going back to that property management.
Yeah.
They can collect. I mean, they can do it all, right? So
Yes.
you had them do the very beginning process, right? And then you manage it from that point on.
Correct. Correct. So the way, I guess my story, the way that it went, we did all the applications and stuff like that with apartments, but then, we kind of ran into an issue. Okay, well, how are we going to get someone to come rent this?
Right.
Right.
So the property management companies can also find the renters for you as well.
Yes.
They manage your tenants. They market and advertise, collect payments, vendor relationships.
Right. So do you know a handyman?
Correct.
Do you
Right.
know someone that knows how to take out a water heater that
Right.
goes out at midnight and now your tenants have no warm water?
Housing regulations? They can handle all that as well.
And I think that's the biggest one right there. That is the biggest one because, I mean, with everything that's going on right now, specifically like Minneapolis, St. Paul, you're going to want to have somebody that knows what's going on
Right. Right.
because there are things that are changing all the time.
They can maximize the profitability.
Right.
Right. So I want to make sure you got the right rental in there, because what if you say it's $1,200 when it should be $1,400?
So you're leaving $200 on the table
Right.
every month? You don't want to do that.
Maybe you're renting to your brother.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're renting to your brother, I guess, give him a family
Right,
discount.
Right. What about doing like Airbnb? Like I think you've kind of dabbled a little bit into that
Dabbled.
as well, and
Dabbled a little bit into it. So right now, short-term rentals, we're still going to need to, if we're going to do like a FHA, right? We're going to buy a multifamily home.
right.
We're still going to need to go off of the rent schedule for a long-term rental.
Right.
Right? Not a short-term rental.
Correct.
They are very different.
Right.
You're going to be getting a long-term rental in there for, maybe 6 months, a year. Short-term rental, generally it's going to be less than a month. Now, there's some other midterm rentals you could do, for like traveling professionals, traveling nurses, folks that are working on the refineries during downturn, right, when they're fixing everything. But Airbnbs generally, they can be profitable a little bit more. You're going to be charging it like a hotel. Best place to start is at airdna.com. They'll give you a free rentalizer based on the amount of bedrooms and the address and the area. They'll give you some very, very basic information.
Yeah.
But this is short-term rentals is one of those areas where you really, starting out, you do want to have a property manager in place. And they're going to take anywhere from 20 to 30% of the cut
Right.
right off the top.
Right.
But because you're going to be making so much more money, it actually ends up paying for itself
Sure.
a lot more. And that's something you have to look into. Is this property going to be good for Airbnb? Is it not going to be? You know, why does someone want to go to your Airbnb as opposed to the Motel 6 or the Marriott,
Right.
right? So,
Now, is it dog friendly?
yeah, is it dog friendly? Oh my goodness. I mean, you can get into all kinds of stuff. And then again, regulations on long-term rentals, they're strict,
Right.
but they're getting way more strict with short-term rentals.
Sure.
And that will go from township to township.
Right.
There, you really want to know what you're doing, and that's where a good property management company is going to come in and be like, oh yeah, no, we know that we could probably get this for that, you know, and then you're like, okay, well, is it worth it? That's up to you to decide then.
Perfect. So I've had a number of clients that they get their first duplex,
Mm-hmm.
and then they end up buying a single family home, or they buy another duplex. They can do it every couple of years.
Sure.
But yeah, it definitely has to be 2 years. And generally, if you're going to be moving into one versus the next, you're going to want to move across town.
Yes.
You're not going to want to move in across the street, because underwriting is going to kind of have an issue with that.
They're going to say, why are you doing this?
Right.
You just wanted to move across the street? You didn't want to, like, get closer to work, or,
Right,
you know,
right.
some other reason? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, because they number one, specifically, I think we talked about this in the past, is like, oh, we have a single family home, but now we're going to buy a duplex.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be a sticky situation, especially as let's just say you work in the southern side of the metro area, and you're somewhere centrally located, but now you want to buy a duplex closer to work. Then you kind of have a case for that. Otherwise,
Right.
a lot of times they're going to be calling, hey, is this really going to be a primary residence for you, because you already have a single family home? Now you're going to move into a duplex, rent
Sure.
this single family home out. And there's some cases that you can probably make for it, but it's going to be a little bit trickier to do that. But then again, too, house hacking is not just made for multifamily. It can be for single family as well. Because I've known plenty of people that will buy a single family home. Let's say they buy a 4 or 5 bedroom single family home,
Sure.
and then they put renters in each room.
Yeah.
And one of my first transactions ever was a guy that did that, and now I think he's up to like 9 units or 9 houses he
Yeah.
owns, and looking at apartment buildings now.
Sure.
And he simply just every 2 years he bought a new house. He put renters in, rented them at $500-600 a room. You know, had low payments, so he was cash flowing really well. And 2 years down the road, he's got a bunch of money saved up, buys the next single family residence, goes in, does the exact same thing every 2 years. And I think it's only been like 6-7 years, but now he's collects so much rent off all these previous properties, he's buying them really fast.
Right.
That's a house hacker, but you got to be willing to move every 2 years.
Right. It's and not everybody wants to do that.
No.
Not everybody wants to do that, but there is a way to do it if you want to do it.
Right. So it happens. Did you have anything else on this subject? Any key components to it?
Key components, I guess, would be, talk to folks about it, right? See if, I know there's groups on Facebook, talk to us too, let us know right away if this is something that you want to do. I've had it actually, where it, we wanted to go out and buy a single family home, and they're like, oh, you know what? There's a duplex there. Why don't we just buy that? And I'm like, oh, crud. We can't now, because they already owned a home and they didn't have enough for 15% down, and they fell outside of Freddie Mac's income limits. Right. So it's stuff that you want to let us know for sure. But then otherwise, there's a lot of good Facebook groups out there for you to get plugged into, learn about it, learn about the area, all that stuff.
Right.
That's what I would do.
The other thing, let's just say you do fall outside that criteria. You can't buy an FHA home, right?
Right.
You got to get a conventional loan. But let's say you have the equity in your single family home to do it, or your previous property, and you can take out a home equity line of credit prior to getting under contract.
Yes. so you can do that.
Right.
If you're going to keep that.
And then you could use those funds as additional funds for down payment and reserves.
Yes.
Because you will start, once you start getting into having more properties, you have to have reserves.
Yes, it's not. Well, we're gonna empty out the bank account once again to do this.
Right.
No, they're not gonna allow that.
And
They're gonna
when-
want to make sure that you have some money set aside.
And we're talking about reserves. We're talking about monthly payments. So if we say we need 6 months of reserves, that's 6 months of your principal in PITI.
Yes.
And let's say your principal, that's a round number, $2,000. So you would need to have $12,000 in reserves. Now you can use retirement accounts as long as we can prove that you can withdraw their money. And pensions don't work, but like 401ks definitely do.
Stocks and bonds.
Stocks and bonds, you can use those different accounts so that you have the reserves. So let's just say, we need $70,000 to buy the house, and you have 75. Well, you wouldn't have the 6 months reserves, but then you kick in, say, even 50, 60,000 in a retirement plan. Now we do have the reserves.
That's why this might be something that the road that you kind of go down too when you're getting pre-approved, not necessarily to buy a single family, but this is why it's important that, when we ask for everything, it's not because we're trying to use all the money that you have, but when we know that we have extra stuff, generally we get better terms on our loans, and that's just in general.
Right. And the last thing I wanted to finish up this is there's a lot, people this is the house hacking 101, right? First time home buyers. There's been a ton of seminars out there lately showing, hey, we'll teach you how to buy a home without any money down and doing all this
Right.
stuff. And number one, if they're doing that, it's a lot of times it's going to be they're going to be fronting that money. It's not great money. A lot of seminars. I just had a guy of mine that he's got 4 rental properties. He was going to go to it last night, and I said, dude, just check it out a little bit more. Look at some reviews on this one, and he's like, oh, they want me to $40,000 for me to invest into their products.
Right.
Right. That's just to get investing into their portfolio.
Right.
So you want to watch out for those. I mean, there's some out there that are just literally trying to sell you on getting your money so they can buy the properties.
Right. On paper, to go buy an investment property without any of your own money, it is possible. It is incredibly hard to do.
Right.
And everybody else is going to tell you, no, it's easy. No, I'm telling you, it is hard. Otherwise,
Well, they're selling
everyone
you the
would be
book.
doing it.
They're selling you the book, or they're selling you the seminar. They're
Yeah.
doing something in that.
Yeah.
We know anything in life isn't always free.
No.
Right.
No. One way or another, you're going to be paying.
Awesome. Well, if you like this episode, just like and subscribe. Contact us, Brett or myself. We'll have our links in the bottom on YouTube and so forth. Otherwise, you can always reach us, through our Facebook pages and so forth.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll shout out my cell phone number right now. I don't care. 651-262-3836. Go ahead, give me a call if you have any questions. That's fine.
No, all is good. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Take care, everybody.